I never thought the day would come when I'd look out my window and see Karen Whitmore and 4 of her friends climbing over my back fence, laughing like hyenas, tossing their sandals onto my patio and heading straight for my pool. But that's exactly what happened. And what they didn't know, what none of them could have possibly guessed, was that my 500-pound bear Samson was already cooling off right there beside the water. The first thing I noticed wasn't the trespassers. It was the low rumble of Samson's breath, that deep, thunderous sound that comes from a creature big enough to tear through bone, but gentle enough to nudge my hand for salmon treats. His fur was wet, glistening in the sunlight, his claws flexing against the concrete. Any sane person would have frozen. But not Karen. She strutted forward in that neon bikini like she was marching into victory, shouting, "Guess he's gone for the weekend." Free pool day. I stood behind the glass door watching through the tint, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Karen had always been trouble ever since the old neighborhood when she ruled the HOA like a queen with a clipboard. She'd fined me for parking too close to my own mailbox, reported my yard lights for being too bright, and once accused my mailbox color of lowering property values. When I finally left that place and bought land outside HOA control, she lost her favorite target. But clearly she'd never let go. I slid the door open just enough to call out, "Hey!" My voice cracked through their music. They all froze for a second, squinting toward the house. Karen rolled her eyes. "He's not even here," she said. That's when I stepped out, boots on the hot stone shadow falling across the patio. Samson's head lifted instantly, his eyes locking on me, then flicking toward the strangers. We had a silent signal, one look, one motion, and he calmed down, though his nose twitched at the scent of unfamiliar skin. Karen's fake smile faltered. "Oh, you're back early," she said, voice sharp but sugar-coated. "We were just leaving," I interrupted, keeping my tone even, slowly, no splashing. One of the guys smirked. "Or what? You gonna call the cops?" I looked toward Samson and said quietly, "Or you'll meet my pool guard." For a second they thought I was joking until Samson stood up. All 600 pounds of him fur, slick and shining muscles rippling as he rose. The sound of his paws hitting the concrete was like a drumbeat from hell. Karen's grin evaporated. One of her friends dropped his drink. Samson yawned, slow, deliberate, showing teeth the size of my fingers, then snorted, sending mist into the air. That broke them. "Move," I said. They did, slowly, barefoot, dripping, muttering curses under their breath. When Karen reached the gate, she turned, her eyes narrowed into slits. "This isn't over," she hissed. I didn't answer. The gate clicked shut, and silence returned. Samson lumbered over to me, brushing my arm with his wet fur. I rubbed his neck and whispered, "Good boy." But my pulse still pounded. I knew Karen too well. This wasn't the end. This was her opening move. For 2 days my property felt eerily calm. Samson lounged by the mulberry trees, half asleep, swatting flies. I fixed the fence, restocked his food freezer, and kept my phone close, waiting for the next storm. Then it came, a call from a blocked number. Silence, then a voice dripping with venom. "You're gonna regret embarrassing me." Click. I stared at the phone, my hands tightening. She'd crossed from petty to dangerous. That night I barely slept. Every creak of the porch, every rustle of leaves felt like an intruder. The next morning I bought new motion lights, extra locks, and a full security camera system. As I worked, Samson watched me from the shade, his amber eyes steady, patient, like he understood this was war. By dusk my property looked like Fort Knox. That's when I heard it, a high-pitched whine in the air. I looked up and saw a drone hovering above the pool camera lens, aimed straight down. My jaw clenched. Karen. She was trying to film the bear build a case that I was keeping a dangerous animal. I ran to the garage, grabbed a signal jammer, and flipped it on. The drone stuttered midair, spun like a drunk mosquito, and dropped behind the trees. Samson let out a huff that sounded suspiciously like a laugh. But that night my phone buzzed again, motion alert backyard. I opened the feed and froze. 3 figures at the gate. Flashlights off, tools in hand. Karen stood behind them, phone raised, filming. She was staging a break-in, probably to catch me threatening her or Samson reacting. I hit record from inside and turned on the floodlights. Boom, the whole yard exploded in white light. They froze like deer. "You're trespassing again," I called out. "Everything's recorded." Karen blinked, squinting. "You can't keep that animal here. He's a threat." I stepped forward just enough for the cameras to see me, but not enough to provoke Samson. "He's licensed," I said calmly. "You're not." Samson emerged from the shadows, stepping into the light like a moving mountain. His fur glistened. His breath fogged the air. No roar, no aggression, just presence. That was enough. The men backed away, muttering. Karen tried to keep filming, but her hand shook. I didn't say another word. Just watched them retreat until the gate shut behind them. After they left, I uploaded the footage, labeled it, and sent it straight to my lawyer, Miles. He replied within minutes. "Perfect. Keep documenting. She's digging her own grave." But later that night, sitting alone in the dark, I felt something I hadn't expected: doubt. Was I becoming like her? Obsessed, paranoid, hiding behind cameras and fences. Was I the crazy neighbor now? For the first time, I felt the weight of isolation, of living behind walls, always on guard. I almost deleted the footage. Almost. Then I remembered the HOA meetings, Karen yelling that I was a danger, calling animal control on me for walking Samson on a leash. The whispers, the smirks. No, I wasn't crazy. I was defending my peace. The next day I drove into town, filed a full report with the sheriff, timestamps, photos, everything. The deputy sighed when he saw her name. Karen Whitmore again. She's got a record of stirring trouble. Stay calm. Don't give her ammo. I promised I wouldn't. But Karen wasn't calming down. That evening I found a pink phone case lying near my fence, hers. Dropped in a hurry. I bagged it as evidence and waited. Around midnight, motion alerts blew up my phone. 5 figures this time, rain pouring, hoods up. One had a crowbar. My security lights flicked on, blinding them. Samson stirred in his den, his deep growl vibrating through the storm. Karen shouted something. I couldn't hear it over the thunder, but her voice cracked. I stepped to the glass door, camera rolling, and called out, "You're violating a restraining order in process. Leave now." Samson stepped into the rainwater, dripping from his fur like liquid bronze. One of the men dropped the crowbar. Lightning flashed. It was chaos, frozen in white light. Then they ran. Karen last, clutching her phone, screaming something about community safety. When they were gone, I collected the crowbar, sealed it in a bag, and uploaded the footage. My hands shook, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from the sense that the tide had finally turned. The next morning a delivery arrived, the signed restraining order. Deputies would patrol daily. Relief should have come, but it didn't. I knew Karen wouldn't stop, and I was right. That afternoon a local news crew showed up at my gate. Cameras, microphones, the whole circus. They started filming, calling me the man harboring a wild animal. Guess who had tipped them off? I stayed inside, silent. Let the cameras roll. Then I called the sheriff. Minutes later, 2 patrol cars rolled up, lights flashing. Karen was there too, pretending to lead an animal welfare protest. The deputies stepped out, firm voices cutting through her megaphone shouts. "Ma'am, you're violating a court order. Step back." She argued, claiming she was inspecting for public safety. But the cameras caught everything. The restraining order in her hand, the sheriff reading her rights. Within minutes, she was cuffed, furious, drenched in the rain she'd brought on herself. Through the window I watched in silence as they led her away, her voice fading into the distance. Samson sat beside me, calm, blinking, slow. The bear was never the danger. The danger had always been Karen, her need to control what she didn't own. When the patrol cars left, I stepped onto the patio. The air smelled clean, washed. The meat she'd thrown over the fence still lay there, a final pathetic trap to bait Samson into acting wild. He hadn't even touched it. He'd just walked away. Smarter than most humans I knew. I picked it up with gloves, sealed it for evidence, and stood there letting the quiet settle in. Later that evening, Miles called. His tone was calm, almost proud. "It's done. She's facing multiple charges: trespassing, harassment, violation of a court order, animal baiting. She won't walk away from this one. I didn't feel triumphant, just empty, like I'd been holding my breath for weeks and could finally exhale. I looked at Samson lying by the pool, soaking in the golden light, eyes half closed. The world had gone still again, peaceful, but not the same. For months I'd lived trapped in her drama, defending every inch of my freedom. Now the war was over and the silence felt heavier than I expected. As I stood there, Samson lifted his massive head and looked at me, breathing out a slow gust of air that smelled like water and pine. It felt like closure, not the kind you celebrate, but the kind that just settles. I went inside, poured a glass of water, and looked through the window one last time. The pool was calm, the sky clear, and for the first time in a long while there was no movement beyond the fence. Karen's gone. The cameras still hum quietly, but they're just background noise now. The bear is back to being what he's always been, a gentle giant, a symbol of the peace I fought to protect. And as I watched him stretch and roll onto his back, I realized something simple. Sometimes standing your ground isn't about fighting, it's about outlasting the noise until the truth speaks for itself.